Welcome to Talking with the Experts. This is where we discuss great ideas to take your business to the next level. How do we know these ideas work? Well, it's because we're talking with business owners who are using these ideas. Business owners who have years of experience and expertise. All things business by business owners for business owners. And now, here is your host, Rose Davidson.
Hi, I'm Rose Davidson from Talking with the Experts. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Global Glamping Charities for their valued support. Global Glamping Charities, solving homelessness in all its forms. Reach out to them at globalglamping.org.
Talking with the Experts.
Every business owner knows they need more testimonials to build trust and authority and to get sales. In episode 440, John Hubbard explains to us how we can do this.
So beta testing is, and ever since I learnt that lesson, I've always launched a course with beta testing to start with, which can be as little as 10 people, but it's just bringing a small group of people through, wrapping them in cotton wool, and really getting to know their needs and how you have to not only delivering them the content, but how you have to deliver the content in a way that makes sense to them and in a way that they'll actually apply it. Because sometimes the information's not enough. It doesn't translate into action at the other end. So it has that added benefit of really making your material effective, but you've got that social proof at the end of it that you can go back out and include it in your webinars and your sales pages and all that kind of stuff.
Talking with the Experts.
Hello and welcome to Talking with the Experts. I'm your host, Rose Davidson from rosedavidson.com. Talking with the Experts is about all things business by business owners for business owners. You can find it on all good podcasting streaming platforms and on YouTube. Well, let me provide some background to my next guest. We know that every business owner knows that they need more testimonials to build trust and authority to get sales. And it's, sometimes it's not that easy. And it's one of the best kept secrets in marketing. And the problem is, though, that collecting testimonials is time consuming and hard, particularly when you are starting out or launching a new product. So my next guest, John Hubbard, is going to share with us actionable tips on how to fix that, specifically the exact script to use when asking for a testimonial so that you don't come across as pushy or needy. And yeah, I'm looking forward to learning that one. The second point is how to capture high quality video recordings using low cost equipment, and how to conduct a testimonial interview in a way that ensures that the most critical information is safely captured. Now, John, a little bit about him, is a business consultant. He's a mentor and a strategic advisor in customer-led marketing. He is the creator of the online course Get Better Testimonials and has been producing video marketing for companies including Nike, Ford, Honda, Oakley, BHP, and dozens of others around the world for more than 20 years. John helps businesses market strategically by placing customer stories at the most crucial points of the marketing funnel. And this is to evoke an emotional connection with the target audience's situation. This, John says, reduces or eliminates the need for aggressive sales tactics. Another point that I would love to learn. John, thank you so much for being here today. And I'm looking forward to what you have to share with us.
Thank you. It's a privilege to be here. I've been a listener to the show, so it's a funny feeling being in this seat.
Wonderful. Oh, that's the first time a guest has ever said that to me. So I feel very honoured.
Me too.
John, tell me, how did you get into doing what you are doing currently?
Well, it's been a long road. I'll give you the short version. I started in video production as an adult student. So I went and studied film, radio and television, and a company came in when I was in my second year of studying. I was 28 at the time, and said, hey, listen, we need someone who can be a bit of a runner for us, as often happens in that situation. They come in and grab the film students to be a runner on set.
Yeah, the
go-to.
little
Yes.
slave. Yes.
Yeah, and yeah, it's to be seen and not heard. And my very first gig was for Ford. Actually, it was at a motor show in Melbourne, and I brought along my camera, even though I wasn't supposed to be filming. And I was basically running around in front of the producer, getting people to talk about this new model of car that had come out. And so I would run around and say, "Hey, listen, would you like to talk about this?" It was a Ford Escape. That's right. And then they would line that up for the next interview. And I remember saying to the producer, a guy called Lindsay, I said, "Hey, listen, I've brought my camera along. Why aren't we, filming the cars instead of filming the people?" And he kind of grunted at me, something along the lines of, "Because social proof trumps features and benefits." And I didn't know what social proof meant. It meant, it's like, well, that sounds important. I don't know what that means. But so I actually went home and Googled social proof. And that was the first time I learned about, using your customers to do the marketing for you. And since then, I spent 10 years in that, in agency land. I went on to, and probably because I had the camera, went on to get gigs quite fast and became a camera operator, and then became a video editor, and then finally a producer. And and one of the things that I saw big brands using, and I can think of for instance, Nike, when they had new apparel come out, the first thing we would do we'd be off to a gym and filming people using it and exercising in it and so on. Ford was the same. We went on to do a lot of what we call wallpapers for Ford, which were case studies of people using the product. And even big companies like BHP Billiton, which you wouldn't expect to use case studies, but they would use case studies in recruitment. So right back in the mid 2000s, when there was a huge mining boom on and they could not fill these positions, they flew us around the world to actually interview people working at all of these different sites and essentially get a case study from people who work for BHP Billiton as a way of promoting recruitment. So that's basically how this came about. And then in 2010, I left and started a property education business because I'd been flipping properties on the side kind of thing, and then started to apply this same thinking to my own business in that kind of coaching and education business.
Okay, that's if that's the short story, I'd hate to hear the long
Sorry.
one. It's really fascinating because you started off as a grommet, and then you've ended up being this huge success. So yeah, well done. I think it takes perseverance and social proof really is, and I didn't know what social proof was either when I'd first heard the term. So I had to ask somebody what that meant.
Yeah, exactly.
And, so how, I guess, using this social proof, these testimonials, how can it help businesses with their marketing funnel?
Yeah, it's one of those things, isn't it, that we all know. I mean, if you come to launch a new product, it's the thing that it's almost always a thing that's last done. So you get all the copy done, you get the web page done and all of that kind of stuff. And then you go, oh, we really need testimonials for this because it doesn't really feel quite finished unless you've got some testimonials for it. So they definitely help. And the statistics are just, mind blowing. And it's not that we don't think that they work. We all know that they work. It's probably the worst kept secret in marketing. It's just the hassle factor that goes with getting them that tends to hold people back from getting them. And most of that, in my experience, just talking to businesses, is just that irky feeling of asking for them in the first place. So the very first thing that we do is just concentrate on how to ask without coming across as needy or pushy. And then once obviously you've got them in the can and or got someone to say yes, then the attention turns to getting a good quality one and making sure that you get the little sound bites that you need. And we've identified, 3 main sound bites that you really need in a testimonial to make it compelling to the audience and ideally a specific target audience. And then from there, where to deploy them, because there are lots of really creative ways that you can deploy testimonials at all different stages. I mean, the obvious use case is, opt-in pages, landing pages where people are coming in to sign up for something or buy a product, sales page, for instance. But there's much more use cases for them, for instance, in webinars, in presentations, speaking from stage. One of my favorite is if you're selling from phone, if you're doing sales calls, using them to pre-position the sales call. So for instance, on thank you pages after someone's booked a call with you, email sequences in the lead up to the call itself, and then post sales call as well. So lots and lots of creative ways that you can use them to boost conversion rates and grow your business.
So if you are just launching a product or a podcast or a course or whatever the case may be, how can you get a testimonial if you've, not had this particular thing, out in the public before?
Yeah, and it's the problem we all face. When you build a product, it's not been in the public before. So how do you get the testimonial? So it was the same when I started and I was a partner with a lady called Jane Slake Smith, who was an author and property investment coach, and we faced the same dilemma when we first launched our online course. We started building it in 2013, launched it in 2014, and the first launch we kind of hired a marketing agency, and they did all of this. They had us a website and a brochure and all of this kind of stuff, and then we turned it all on, emailed. I think we had maybe a list of 3,000 at that stage, and emailed the list. I think we got three or four sales, and we're heartbroken. We spent 9 months making that online course. So I went back to the drawing board and applied what I'd learned working for those bigger firms and put 20 beta testers. We just emailed the same list of 3,000, said, hey, listen, we're putting together a small group of people to test out this course and get feedback. And we're after 20 people. And I can remember some people close to us at the time said, well, there's 20 sales you're never going to get, kind of thing. So there was a bit of, trepidation of going down this route and giving away the course for free. But the first thing I did when we got the 20 people in is we did a before interview and worked out, what the desire was in the this was a very specific course about renovating as a property investment strategy. And then at the end of the course, when they've finished and seen the content and got all the value out of it, we then interviewed them again and got a after picture. And then we recut our promotional video, went back out to the list. And I think we got 20 sales that time, and then the next time it was 40, and then from there. So beta testing is, and ever since I learnt that lesson, I've always launched a course with beta testing to start with, which can be as little as 10 people, but it's just bringing a small group of people through, wrapping them in cotton wool, and really getting to know their needs and how you have to not only delivering them the content, but how you have to deliver the content in a way that makes sense to them and in a way that they'll actually apply it, because sometimes the information's not enough. It doesn't translate into action at the other end. So it has that added benefit of really making your material effective, but you've got that social proof at the end of it that you can go back out and include it in your webinars and your sales pages and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting how, I guess, when they sign up to do the beta, do you actually, tell them that they'll be interviewed individually before the course begins?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the quid pro quo that's going on. So you're saying, hey, this course is going to come out. It's going to be worth $2,000 when we release it to the public. But we're willing to, if you're willing to go through it with us, we're going to give you personal attention over the next time frame. So for instance, 3-4 weeks, for instance, and then in return, all we ask for is a video testimonial, or it might be 2 video testimonials. And that's a really good deal for both parties, and everyone wins.
Yeah, I'm just about to launch a 30-day program where people actually learn to be a podcaster so they can launch their own podcast. A lot of people are a bit hesitant to start a podcast because they have no idea what they need to do, and they think it's really hard. And I think that strategy might work for me. Rather than launching it as a paid course, I might launch it as a beta, and do as what, take on those suggestions that you've made, and then then I can get testimonials when I actually do launch the thing. And But
it is terrific. And the strange thing that happens there too, I found, is those people that come through that beta group, they really take ownership of that product and they become great advocates for you. Even just they're posting on social media when and commenting when you're promoting it and all of that kind of stuff, but also referrals. And there's so many great things that come from that process.
Yeah, sounds like it. I might, as I said, I might take on those suggestions and do it, stretch it out a little bit longer. I was going to do it in April, but I might stretch it out to maybe May or June and see how I go. Now, what about podcasters? Doing a podcast is, really great. I love doing mine. I meet so many great people, but it's really difficult for me to get a testimonial from any of my guests unless they feel, they've had an absolutely splendid time. In the email that I send back after I'm sending back the links to the interview so that they can post and I do ask them for testimonials, either video or written, but I'm not getting much feedback from those. So what is a good way to word something, or how do we as podcasters get these testimonials, which are really important for social proof?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I've got a few ideas. I haven't applied directly to podcasts before, but there's no reason we can't apply all the strategies we use for every other type of product or service to testimonials. So you said the testimonials would be from guests. That's right, rather than listeners. That's the
Yes.
And who's the target market that would be watching that testimonial? Who would you be showing that to?
People that would be either potential guests or people or your listeners. I've had this great interview, listening to the episode, and the guest has given a testimonial to say how much they had a great time, listening to the episode, stuff like that. I mean, I know you've been to my website and you've seen some of my testimonials and they were really good, but they're not consistent enough to keep more modern, I guess, you know what I mean? So up to date.
Yeah, no, I get it. Yeah, I think so. Where I would start with is just I treat testimonials kind of like any other marketing campaign, like if you can imagine like their own little sales letter. So it's coming out of the customer's mouth, but essentially we're trying to do the same job. So I would start with, okay, who's my target market? Let's say, and I'm not sure, would sponsors be a target market for someone that you could?
Yes, yeah, they could be. Yeah, you get people to sponsor the podcast and listening to what the guests have to say would be great, and then progress on to listeners if they felt called to leave a testimonial about how they viewed the episode.
Yeah, well, that's a good use case scenario then. If we thought that if we were just going to narrow down, and like any marketing, the more you can narrow down to a specific target market per campaign, doesn't matter. You're not locked into it forever, but let's say a really good campaign is always, target market specific. So if we just said, let's design testimonials that are really going to appeal to sponsors. So the first thing I'd do is I'd do a bit of analysis. What appeals to sponsors? What are their desires? What do they want to see in a podcast before they put their hand in their pocket? What are their fears about sponsoring a podcast? What are the pains that they have? What is that pains in that person's job who's responsible for that role in the organization when he's talking to podcasts? So that's where I would start, because then when I'm asking the questions for the testimonial, I can kind of pull on those conversation threads and leave some of the other stuff alone that's not really going to be talking, as Robert Collier, the famous copywriter, said, it's not entering the conversation that's going on in the prospect's mind. So that's what I'm really doing, is thinking about what the outcome is, thinking about the target audience, and then going, okay, well, let's capture a testimonial that's really going to speak to that target audience and compel them to take the next step. So one of the ways that I would do that is just do a little fears, pains, like put a couple of columns on a page and do a little fears, pains, desires exercise. So that's where I'd start. And then I'd craft my questions in and around that for the interview itself. And I'm a big advocate of the interview rather than getting them to provide it using software. And I'll come back around to how I arrived at that position. I won't go down that rabbit hole now, but what you can do in the interview is really pull on those threads that advance our case, that advance our end outcome that we're trying to achieve. And so the way that we would do that is the first one, I know the problems. I've got a rough idea of the problems that our sponsor has. So, for instance, it might be around, let's say, and I'm making this up because I haven't done this research on these sponsors, but let's say that their worry is they're going to sign up a podcast and they're not going to go beyond 3 more episodes or something like that. Let's say, because we all know a lot of podcasts have a short shelf life. Yeah. So that might be one. So one of the things we might get out of your guest, let's say if you were interviewing me at the end of this for a testimonial, I might say, if something came out of my mouth along the lines of, Rose has been around for her podcast has been around for a long time. I'm sure it's going to go for many more years. And what I love about it is something like that. So that's kind of singing the praises in a way that appeals to that in target audience, if that makes sense.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, it's a good idea, because I don't ask for the testimonial after the interview, like whilst I'm still recording. What I do is ask when I send the, thank you for being on my show, here are the links. So
yes, that would be the other suggestion that I would make. Yeah, strike while the iron's hot, because it's the old thing, isn't it? The people, a lot of event people say to me that I have people come up to me after I've spoken. They say, "That was amazing, you've blown my mind," and they say, "Oh, fantastic! Can I capture that on a testimonial?" And the audience member says, "Yeah, of course, yeah. What now?"
Yeah.
So yeah, if you could, the closer to the closer to the result that you can get the testimonial is the ideal timing. So the end of the show would be a perfect time for you. And rather than it coming out of the blue, if you're able to suggest that even in the sign up stage, so when someone's onboarding to be a guest on your show, it'd be something like, if you have a good experience, would you be willing to give me a short testimonial for the show at the end of the episode?
Great suggestion. I'll take that on board, and I will go and fix up my onboarding process immediately. I think that's a great suggestion. So anyone who's got a podcast, John's suggestion is really worthwhile doing. I think it's going to get those testimonials for your podcast and help you hopefully get some sponsors, because it's a spontaneous thing. It's not something that someone's really had a really long time to think about, and if they've had a good experience on the podcast, that they'd be more than willing to leave a testimonial.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. And they're normally got their good shirt on, and they're well lit, and so it's in their interest to be looking their best, because the other problem that you come across with video testimonials is just the quality. And that's the other reason that I'm a big advocate for the interview, because you do have some control over the quality. You can say, okay, can you open that window? Can you tilt your laptop screen down a bit? Can you do this? Can you do that? Yeah.
All good little points to take into consideration. John, when you're helping business owners, to get their testimonials, what sort of steps or what sort of points would you like to share that might help them along their journey?
Yeah, the big one is the getting over that hurdle of reaching out, and a lot of that is just self-imposed fear, or perhaps a lot of people have had the experiences of reaching out for a testimonial to a customer, and they've said yes, and then nothing really happens. So the next step isn't taken, or it's just created an awkward situation. So most of the time that comes down to not making it easy for the client to say yes. So really dumping the onus of responsibility onto your client. And it normally goes along the lines of, hey, Rose, would you be willing to give me a video testimonial? Yes. Great. Now, if there's no kind of next step from that, if I'm just sending you a link to one of the software, programs that record testimonials, you're kind of thinking, oh, well, what does John want me to say? Where do I start? What if I say the wrong thing? So all that onus of responsibility is heaped on you to give the testimonial, and you can't possibly know who my target audience is or what the hot buttons are in my sales process for selling my product. So it's really not a good recipe for getting a lot of testimonials in the door. So I've come up with a bit of a framework that I call the real testimonial request framework. And the first letter of real is just the relationship first. So don't put everything on the line for getting the testimonials, because, you know, someone's not always who knows what's going on in their life at the moment. You know, they could be up against a deadline, there could be troubles at home, you just wouldn't know. So putting the relationship first is a really good practice. And the idea is there to and it's almost counterintuitive in a way, that you're making it easy for your customers to say no in order to make it easy for them to say yes. And that way you're not going to have that awkward conversation, or for them to have to come up with a lame excuse, you know, somewhere down the track. So it's essentially just in your request saying something along the lines of, hey, I know you're super busy right now, so no big deal either way, but if you're open to the idea, I really appreciate it. And if my timing's not good, please reply with next time in the subject line, is what I like to do with clients. And please, no further explanation is necessary. So that's a way of just making it easy for them to say no in order to get a lot more testimonials. And the funny thing that we find with that is it really just takes away the fear of asking in the first place, which is often why the testimonials aren't coming in the door, because people just aren't asking.
Yeah, good point. Okay, so so R is keeping it real. What's
Yep.
the next bit?
So E is easy and fast. So it's, you know, pretty self-explanatory. But the idea is, and this is where the interview really helps, is just taking that onus and responsibility for capturing the testimonial onto you rather than them. So the interview is it does that. So you'd say something along the lines of, in the request, you know, hey, I'd love to share your story about how you, let's say, you teaching some form of marketing strategy using book launches. You know, I'd love to share your strategy of how you doubled your sales using the book launch strategy. So you're telling them exactly what you would like them to talk about. Would you be open to a 30-minute case study interview with me via Zoom? And no preparation is necessary. It's just a casual chat. So the idea with that is you've got really clear parameters of what the interview is about. So you've told them exactly what you want to talk about and how long it's going to take, and no preparation is necessary. And that's a really good way of bringing the onus of responsibility onto you. And not only that, an interview is where you can really control and get the information, because you can have multiple bites of the cherry. And there's ways that we, you know, position the questions so we get the answers that we need. And not that they're making stuff up or we're making them read or anything like that, because that's the opposite of what we want. We don't want wooden testimonials, but we do want them to hit the points that are going to resonate with our target audience.
And A?
Yeah, A is a reason why. Now, this is a really interesting one. So giving a reason why you want the testimonial is something that increases response rate. And this is all around the word because. So this was first recognized in 1978. A Harvard University study showed simply by adding the word because to a request actually multiplied the likelihood of compliance. So what they did is they used college kids to do it. They pushed into a line a Xerox machine, you know, and they said, excuse me, I have 120 pages. May I use the Xerox machine? So the compliance of that was very low. Not many people let the student cut into the line. But when they said, excuse me, I have 20 pages, may I use the Xerox machine because I have to make copies? What they found is the compliance shot straight up. And what was really interesting about that study is they found that whatever went after the word because didn't really make that much difference to the compliance. It was just the fact that there was a reason given with the request that made the difference. So how you might apply that to asking for a testimonial is, hey, you know, because I'm adding a testimonial page to my website, for instance. So it's just giving some context, and, you know, statistically, people are far more likely to comply if you give them a reason why.
And L?
L's larger contribution. So obviously our clients aren't silly. They know we're going to use the testimonials for promotional purposes, but it doesn't stop us, you know, just adding in that extra element of, hey, it's going to help other people in the community, or it's going to have some larger benefit of not just me. So adding that small element in there. So often I would say something like, you know, I know your story would help a lot of other people in the community. Would just be a way that I would add that into the request. And again, that's just softening the request a little bit. So all of those elements combine kind of put you in a really good place to to receive a yes for the testimonial. It's only going to take 30 minutes of their time. No preparation is necessary. They know exactly what they need to talk about. And then if they want to reply with next time in the subject line, and you can loop back around to them, you've left that door open to do that.
Yeah, I like that. It's a really great way to get the testimonials, and what you've provided, the information you've provided it's just so simple, and it's a little bit of a no-brainer really, but it's things that we don't think about.
Yes, it's often common sense, but yes, it is. It's like anything. There's so many things to do in business, isn't there? That it's just you can't know best practice for everything.
No.
So yeah.
No, absolutely, John. Where can people find you if they want to take your program? You'll want to reach out to you just to find out a little bit more about how they can get better testimonials.
Yeah, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. It's probably one of the best places I spend most of my time there in terms of social media. So if you just look for John Hubbard on LinkedIn, you'll see my profile plastered with testimonials. The other thing that you can do, if you'd like to, get the script that we talked about here today, I've got a link that people can go to, which is just testimonialscript.com, and that's just a little download, and that'll basically have what we talked about today along with a script that you can literally just copy and paste and fill in the blanks.
Oh, wonderful. So go and grab that, everyone, and you'll get the best testimonials you've ever received ever in your entire business career.
That's right, with a bit of luck.
John, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for being here today and sharing your valuable wisdom. I loved it. It was great.
Thank you, Rose, and thanks again for having me on the show. It was a real privilege. Thank you.
It was. And if you could share some advice, doesn't matter what kind of business advice or any type of advice to somebody, what would you offer?
Yeah, I pondered this question, and I think getting results up front for your client is probably the best piece of advice that I've followed, and it goes back to that discussion we had on beta testing and so on. But when you're starting a new, whether it be a service or a product or an online course, whatever it is just taking a small group of people or even one person and getting that result, because it has so many knock-on benefits of being able to really hone that product, and then even just the conversations that can happen afterwards to say, hey, I've been working with Rose across here on getting testimonials for a podcast. I'm looking to add some more clients and do the same thing. So just that conversation's so much easier if you just get the result for one person first.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely right too. I mean, results speak volumes, don't they?
Yeah.
John, thanks again, and I look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thank you, Rose.
You've been listening to Talking with the Experts, hosted by Rose Davidson. Make sure you have a look at our back catalogue over at talkingwiththeexperts.com, and be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss out on any episode. We look forward to your company next time. Talking with the Experts.